What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the recent summer reward vehicle, the Chrysler 300 SRT8 Crown Edition. I would say this is probably one of the craziest looking summer cars we have ever had on the game, and upon first glance I really think this is like the vehicle you would see on the cover of Midnight Club Remix, but nonetheless I would say this thing looks absolutely insane. The first thing I noticed about this car when I drove it was the fact that those rims are honestly ridiculous looking, and I kind of do like them. I'm not going to lie on that, though. I do love the gold going around them plus the blue. Those also might be the smallest tires I've ever seen on a car in my entire life. Then obviously we have this really nice blue color on this vehicle. The top of the car is going to be black for some odd reason. I would say it kind of does remind me of like a Rolls Royce or something like that, but I really do love the detail of that, plus the goldish stripe going around the side there. Obviously, the taillights are going to be wrapped in that goldish color as well. It might even be like a yellowish orange color. But regardless, it does look really good how it goes around this vehicle, and you can also see that on the exhaust pipe and or rear diffuser. So I do think they hit it out of the park with the detail of this vehicle, and do not worry, I will also show the interior view of this car here in a second as well, because that does look pretty insane. But from the driving I have done with this vehicle so far now, using this thing in the Summit, I was kind of confused on it at first, but after driving it, I would say this car is going to have very good handling from what I have seen with it so far. Is it going to be the fastest street car in the game? Unfortunately, I don't think this car is going to be very fast when it comes to top speed from the testing I have done, but when it comes to the handling, I would say this thing is going to be an absolute blast to use, and I don't think there's going to be any car on the Crew 2 at the moment that looks insanely detailed like this one does. But besides all that, let's go do a quick outside look of the Crown Edition right now, because I do want to take a closer look at the detail of this vehicle. I will also show the interior of this car as well, because I cannot believe how blue that looks in there, my goodness. I also noticed by going around the car here for a second, you can kind of see the crown on the top of like the headrest there, which obviously would make sense because it's the, Crown Edition. We will also do a quick top speed test with the vehicle as well, just to see how it might compare to some of the other street cars that are basically owning the street class at the moment. Then I will also jump into a street race to really test out this vehicle's overall performance. So now taking an outside look of the new Crown Edition right now, I think we can all agree this car does give off some of the Rolls-Royce vibes as I did mention before, but my goodness, those rims are absolutely ridiculous looking, and obviously this is going to be a V8, so it's going to sound really awesome as well. So now moving over to the interior view of the Crown Edition right now, I think we can all agree this does look really awesome. So the back view, you guys can clearly see the crowns and the headrests of the seats there. Plus, obviously, the interior of this vehicle is going to be blue, and or I think that's like a goldish, like orange type of color on there as well. So I do think the interior of this vehicle does look pretty awesome, but I would say this is probably too much blue for many people, but then again, it really does depend on what upgrade you guys want to go with your vehicle and or like the way you might want to customize that. But also one thing I did notice as well is the front screen obviously doesn't work in the car, which I don't think it works in the regular one either, so I would say that's probably not going to be that big of a deal to many players, but if they really wanted to, they probably could have added like the Chrysler emblem on there, similar to how like the Dodge Demon and or Challenger Hellcat have it in this game. It could be something like that as well, but at least we have the regular odometers and the RPM readers in the car, because these obviously do work, but you do not have the screen there, which, as I did mention before, doesn't really break this vehicle in any way, but I would say the overall detail of the Chrysler is still pretty dang impressive. But now let's go see what the top speed of the Crown Edition actually is. So I'm sure a lot of people did notice when driving this car in the Summit that it is indeed going to be a 5-speed, which I personally don't really mind all that much. But if you guys are running manual, this car is going to take a little bit to get used to how it might shift, because I did notice with the RPM being kind of weird, you might have to shift the car too early and or too short, and you can definitely lose some speed that way. But I'll talk more about that here in a second in the race. So I would say this car is going to get up to speed pretty dang quick for what it is, and obviously hitting the nitrous here, 237, 238 there, 241 going down the hill. So if the top speed is going to be around 237 miles an hour, is going to be in the right category. The main reason why I say that is many of the other street cars in the game also seem to do about 237 to like 241, so the car really isn't going to fall behind in any way. Now, if you guys were to go against like a Superleggera on some of the longer events, then You might end up falling behind just a little bit on some of the bigger street events that do have the more open areas, but honestly I don't think it's going to really make or break this vehicle in any way because I still found the Chrysler to be really fun to use, and this car might be a 5-speed, so even in that one aspect might slow this car down a little bit compared to something that can shift faster, but I don't think that's going to ruin the Crown Edition in any way, but that could make this car a little bit harder to pick compared to some of the better street cars, because you know you might end up falling behind in some areas where other cars would be a lot better in. So with the racing I have done with the Crown Edition so far, I would say this car is not going to be bad in any way, but if I had to guess though, I would say a lot of players are probably not going to use this vehicle for like racing and summits and all that, but I would probably run this vehicle on like just regular street races for like grinding out money and followers and or like maybe going after parts and stuff like that. I probably wouldn't run this vehicle in summits and or like PvP. I just don't really think it's going to be all that great. Now, the main reason why I say that is probably going to be part of the 5-speed the car is going to have. So the main reason why I keep mentioning that is the fact that these vehicles can be kind of weird to drive at times. So if you guys have noticed sometimes when driving these vehicles, including the 4 speeds as well, you'll notice when shifting through the gears that the car will look like it might redline, but for some odd reason it obviously doesn't. It'll keep accelerating maybe another 10 to 15 miles an hour. I noticed the Crown Edition here does do that a good amount, so when being in turns and all that, and if you guys are running manual as well, this can be a bit of a nightmare to get used to, but the more you would probably drive the vehicle will most likely get better over time. I did notice that with it. And with the way this car is geared, you'll most likely find yourself downshifting when you shouldn't be if you guys are running manual. Even in automatic, this can probably also be some type of issue as well. So for me, I did find myself going into second gear when I shouldn't have been. I should have probably been in third, but the way the car is going to accelerate is it will accelerate past the RPM as it is shown. So the second the car hits the RPM, it will like bounce off the rev limiter just a little bit, and it will keep accelerating like another 10 to 15 miles an hour as I did mention before. So this will definitely take some time to get used to, but once you guys get that down, I do think the car will get easier to drive without a doubt. And one of the other things I did notice about the Crown Edition is the fact that this vehicle is going to have really good handling. I was honestly very impressed with this car when I used it in the Summit as well. I was kind of surprised that this car was gripping turns like that, not having any issues, and with the tiny tires and the huge rims this car does have, you would probably not expect that with it, but then again, that probably isn't going to affect the vehicle's handling in any way. So I would say when it comes to handling, the Crown Edition is probably going to be a great vehicle. The biggest flaw with the car is probably going to be the way it's going to accelerate and or shift, so it will definitely have some flaws to it, but then again, most of the cars have their own flaws as well, but I wouldn't say that's going to ruin the Crown Edition in any way, but it will definitely take some time to get used to the way this vehicle is going to accelerate. One of the things I did notice when driving this car in the Summit as well was the fact that when you would shift up a gear, the car would kind of bog down a little bit, and that's most likely because before, the car wasn't maxing out its speed like it should have been in that one gear, so you'll have to accelerate more. And then by doing that, the hopes of having more power in the next gear is going to be something you will definitely be looking for, and having that weird bogging down of the power coming out of a turn is definitely going to be an issue. And normally you'd want to like shift down or something to try to get that power back, but with these vehicles you shift down, the car's going to redline, then you shift back up and the car's going to lose power. At least that's something I did notice with it. But again, even with that, at least you can run this vehicle with cruising around and maybe like grinding out parts and all that, going after followers and money. But regardless, I would say the overall design of the Crown Edition is pretty awesome. I love the detail that they put into this car with the gold, and I think that's gold at least. The blue, those rims look insane, and obviously the interior has a nice detail to it as well, but if I had to guess, I would probably say this is not the car people were probably hoping would have been added. But then again, we also have that really cool looking Aston Martin that's also coming into a Summit as well, which is about 3 weeks away. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how that car is going to perform. But if you guys are looking to use something in like competitive racing and or like Summits, I would say the Crown Edition probably isn't going to be the best option. But let me know your thoughts on this car in the comments below. What do you guys think about this thing? Do you like how it handles? Do you like how this car looks overall? Definitely getting some Midnight Club vibes from this vehicle, which would definitely bring back a lot of memories with how great those Midnight Club games really were. I still hope that somehow in the future we might be able to get another one of those, but if you guys are interested, by the way, here are the settings I'm currently running on the Crown Edition. That definitely makes this car handle really well.